Hi, I'm Danny Elfman.
This is Shirley Manson.
This is Debbie Harry.
This is Chris Stein of Blondie.
This is Roland Orzabal from Tears for Fears.
This is Billy Idol.
This is Alex Ebert, a.k.a. Edward Sharp, giving the story behind the song.
Hi, this is Peter Chotty, host of The Story Behind the Song. Each month I speak to some of music's biggest artists to get the inside stories behind their most lasting and iconic songs. Join me for new episodes on the third Monday of every month on The Story Behind the Song from the Consequence Podcast Network, available wherever you get your podcasts.
Mega Ran released his debut record, The Call, in 2006. At the time, he was known as Random, and the album was conscious hip-hop. In no time, he accessed a different side of himself, and that was his love for video games. He started putting out music that sampled video games, and he would rap about video games, most notably Mega Man. He then connected with the bubbling nerdcore hip-hop scene and became a prominent figure. He's released a ton of records about a variety of topics. Earlier this year, he released an excellent kids album called Buddy's Magic Toy Box, which has a ska song on it called Recess. Stack Like Pancakes and Jer are featured on the track.
A lot of these guests we know and we have some sort of history with. I had to remind Mega Ran that we've met before.
Yeah.
I made sure to let him know in a former life, we played about 4 or 5 shows with him as Narboots. Definitely a different experience being on this podcast than being at a Narboots show.
Yeah. So I don't know if you were really setting him up for success by prefacing our interview that we were the Narboots guys.
I think it helped. I mean, I feel like it sets you a little bit at ease if you have some sort of history with the guys.
You're like, oh yeah, those guys that were insane and made everyone uncomfortable. That's who I'm doing a podcast episode with.
Hey, but we have a much different vibe here on the mics.
I think a good place to start would be your shirt that you got. The ska and pro wrestling are the only legitimate forms of art. This is a meme that has traveled the world, and I'm curious how it came into your periphery.
Man, it just so happened to work out where, I'm a big fan of ska and pro wrestling, and a good friend of mine makes really funny meme T-shirts that in music and wrestling worlds that kind of tend to go viral once in a while. And he put up the T-shirt, and I said, "Yeah, this is it. This is my life. I need to get it." And he kind of texted us in the group chat like, "Hey, new T-shirt up," And I was like, "Yoink!" Got it immediately. And also on a personal note, I had just lost some weight, so I was like, I'm in the market for new T-shirts. I'm down to a 2X from a 3X, so a lot of my old tees are just really baggy on me. So anytime now that I can find a good tee in my new size, I gotta grab it. And my excuse is always, well, I need new shirts, so I gotta do it. And I was really hoping it would make it before I went on tour, and it got there. I think maybe the day I was leaving for tour, it got to my house. So I ripped it out of the package, and I think I put it on that same day. So when I first took the photo wearing it, I was at like a weird rest stop somewhere between Arizona and California. Dateland, actually. I don't know why I actually remember exactly where I was, but I was at a Dateland where you get like date shakes and things.
Yeah.
And it's a really cool stop.
Oh, I've had a date shake there before. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a cool stop. It's like
they're pretty good.
It's one of the common ones if you're a bit of a touring musician. Like you will hit it between Arizona and California, and it's actually pretty good. So I don't know. It was a particularly nice day. Weather was pretty sunny, but not too much. And I looked in the mirror and I said, "Hey, this shirt looks pretty good on me. I need to spread the word." And I'm always willing to spread the word of new friends' T-shirts and things. So I was like, I gotta take this picture. And then I did, and it just kind of blew up. And I was like, oh man, like, isn't this like an old meme that like this wasn't like made up today? Like, I'm just like, it's very interesting that how is, I don't know, and you guys run a ska podcast, so maybe you can answer this. How is it that everyone has great opinions, great memories, great feelings about ska, but yet ska is at the same time underrated and quote unquote dead and things like that. Like, how do these both exist at the same time?
Well, to me, it seems like a lot of people do not have great opinions about ska.
Everyone I know does. I mean, maybe I'm just
Yeah.
lucky.
It's kind of coming back around. Like, I feel like there was a period of time where it was like cool to bag on ska, and everyone really focused on the most embarrassing aspects of it. But now I think people are kind of like, oh yeah, that was, I went to some ska shows. It was really fun. Or,
Yeah.
or that music's not bad. Like,
It's
I do
not
feel like
bad.
there's a change happening.
I think so. I really feel like it's one of those things. Like, I'm a big video game collector, and it kind of works the same way with games. These games that were terrible at the time become collector's items and become revered over time, where you're like, you know what, that was a simpler time. And sometimes it's just a reminder of our youth and fun times. And then it becomes okay. Or so just making sure, like, this fringe ska fandom that I tend to run into, this isn't like ironic, is it? Like, there aren't people who are just being like, yeah, sure, I love ska, but just like all the while being super ironic about it. Like, you don't think that's the case, Steve?
I don't think so. Have you come across that, Adam?
I think there is a pipeline there of people who ironically are like, yeah, ska. And then, and then they, put it on, and then like, actually this is the shit. And then it becomes serious.
I got to thank MC Lars for my my real introduction to ska, and he really made me go back. We would do a bunch of tours together, and he would talk about Real Big Fish and Mighty Mighty Boss Tones and Aquabats. I was already familiar with, and he had done so many collaborations with a lot of bands, and it really made me dig to find them. Like, whenever a person was driving on the road, they controlled the radio, and so a lot of times he'd play a ska playlist, and I'm like, yo, I love this. I heard this before. I like it a lot. Who's this? So I started making notes and jotting things down. And so yeah, I really got to thank MC Lars for that. Like, and he was the first person I seen really putting hip hop and ska together. And it worked.
Do you prefer on tour to be the one driving, or do you prefer to be the one sitting shotgun DJing?
Gosh, I don't know. I don't really have a preference. I'll do either.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm one of those guys who weirdly takes mental notes of who's taking the turn driving and who hasn't.
Okay.
It's like, all right, now it's your turn. Like, you can't keep, we can't keep skipping you. Like, get on that wheel, But I like night drives where I can kind of focus, zone out. I'll play some cool music. One of my favorite things to play is probably the Daft Punk Tron soundtrack, and just zoning out on a dark road. And I get so many of my ideas for songs and just creative ideas while I'm just on the open road. So I actually prefer to drive. I like those late night overdrives a lot.
Yeah, those late night drives when I feel like there's less sensory input when you're driving. You just get the like reflectors on the road, and everything's dark, and it's just like whatever's illuminated by your headlights.
Yeah. That's really good point. It's like you have less to think about. There's less cars on the road, less defensive driving maybe needed. So you're able to kind of focus on other things. So the music will play, and or even sometimes I'll go in silence or with a wrestling podcast, and then my mind's just going with ideas, So yeah, I really do prefer the drive. I think that the passenger has the most like responsibility and
Sure.
like stress, because it's like you got to keep the driver awake for the most part. Like, if I don't get in the passenger seat unless I'm ready to be a good passenger,
Yeah. I get mad when the person sitting shotgun falls asleep.
Yeah, like that's like totally against the rules, like road rule violation. Like, you should not be falling asleep, So I take that very seriously. It's like you got to keep that person entertained, tell them jokes, just stay awake with them,
Yeah.
The person that sold you the Scum Pro Wrestling shirt, could you say who they are? Because we follow each other on social media, and I see all their memes. I actually don't know their real name because they always use weird names like James Vanderbeek or something like that.
Yes. I don't know if he actually uses his real name on the internet. So he's known as James Vanderbeek, Jaims.
Okay, so James Vanderbeek is the unofficial official name.
That's the unofficial official name. He runs a really cool like a t-shirt site that's what is it? It's pentagonzo.com. So I gotta make sure to shout him out. It's a TeePublic site with all of his original creations. He's done a lot of really cool stuff. I tend to buy one of these every couple months. They're just so hilarious. So you can go there now and see. He's got CM Punk was right. He's got Ron and Fez in the Monday Night Raw thing. He's got Tupac Amora. He's got all these different wrestling, pop culture mashups that are really, really good. He does a WWF in the style of MTV, which is cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a lot of really, really great ideas that cross up all the things that I love in my life. It's usually wrestling. It's music from the 90s. It's Charlie Brown. It's, just several cartoons. Really, really fun stuff. So, and there's new stuff popping up all the time. So, and Sky and Professional Wrestling is $16 right now. Oh, he's got a whole ska section. I just realized he has a whole ska section right now. Sorry, I'm reading this while talking to you.
No, that's awesome.
The Mighty Mighty Boss Men, which is a crossover of the Big Boss Man wrestler and the Boss Toads. Less Than Jake the Snake is another good one. And Real Big Fish, which is literally just a bunch of wrestlers with trombones in their hands. Oh man, I might have to get all these. So shout out to Beak. We call him Uncle Beak for short. Like I said, I've never seen his like real name on the internet, so I don't know if I should share that. But
yeah,
but shout out to Beak.
Yeah, so the person who came up with ska and pro wrestling are the only legitimate forms of art was just like a random person I know on Twitter who just like made their own hat and they wore it to a show and took a photo, and it like the photo went kind of viral.
Yeah.
And so these like sort of these sites that pop up that sort of just steal things and sell, duplicates, hats and shirts of them, they started popping up with these.
Oh yeah. It's so crazy. Like there's bots set up where if you just say, I need that on a shirt, like you'll instantly get replies of people like with bootleg sites that literally have it on shirt.
But Uncle Beak is the only person that the person who created the ska and wrestling, the only person that they said is officially licensed to use it.
What? Oh wow, good. We're not over here shouting out bootleggers. Great.
No, I just wanted to point that out because people.
So glad you said that.
People ask me sometimes, like, where did you get that? And the only place that's authorized by the creator of this meme, if you will, is Uncle Beak. Yeah,
that's amazing. I love that we're in a culture, and a point in culture now where a tweet can blow up and become a part of pop culture, and that tweet creator then has to kind of clear it with everyone else, or at least should, because we want to support the people who are legit. So I appreciate that. I think I read a long time ago there was a Lizzo, I think, had a lawsuit, one of many, but this one was about I just took a DNA test and I just found out I'm 100% that whatever. Apparently was a tweet or an Instagram caption, and she put it in a song, and then the person who came up with it like came after her, like, I'm suing you. You can't put that in the song. So it makes me think, like, man, if I say in a song, ska and pro wrestling are the only legitimate forms of art, like, I don't want to get sued. So you got to be careful.
Yeah. What do we know what the outcome of that lawsuit was?
Probably settled out of court, like everything else.
Break her off just a little bit.
Yeah, it's like, all right, here's a few $100 now. Leave me alone.
Can we do a little sidebar real quick about shirts?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a musician. You print up merch. I have a lot of qualms with the way people print merch these days, and I don't know where you land on this, but like, what brand of shirts are you printing your stuff on?
Oh man, this is a bit of inside baseball here, but but I do think consumers now are a lot more aware of this. Like, I've had fans be like, "Oh, Gildan, no thanks, bro."
Yeah.
Like, so I've definitely seen it happen. So all right, this is what I do, and there's a couple different things. If I can afford it, I make sure to get a soft style t-shirt at all costs.
Yeah.
Like that is my plan always, because the cheaper you go with these shirts, the worse they are. They do not last. They're one or two washes and they're just falling apart. And that doesn't help anybody. Like the
Nope.
point is, a t-shirt is like a billboard that you get to
Yeah.
sell to a person. Like they literally buy a billboard from you. And so they won't advertise you if it's peeling, cracking, falling apart. So it doesn't help anybody. So you might get that $20 right then and there, but now you've kind of lost a little bit of their trust. So I think it's important to go with a soft style, something that feels good. And that's what I do. The American Apparel soft styles are excellent. I have ordered and used, Gildan in the past, and I'll try my best not to, but Gildan soft style is not bad. But I have started to use a site called, what the heck is it now? What do they call it? Cotton Bureau. I don't know if you guys have heard of them.
Mm-mm.
Cotton Bureau is another one of those like instant t-shirt people where it's like you can get the shirt, you get them made to order.
Yeah.
So the moment you pay for it is when they get printed. So I don't have to print 400 of these that people may not buy.
Right.
But they print on such a great quality tee that it's the best shirt I've ever seen. It is next level. That's what it is. It's next level. And it's like a vintage black. On the black, even the black tees are kind of not pitch black, but they're like a vintage black.
Mm-hmm.
And if you know what I mean, and they're like really, really good quality, and they stand out. And so what I did, the problem is with these, it's like $30 a shirt, and they don't let you get any sort of lower price deal, no price breaks, nothing like that. So I buy one for myself, and then hopefully that will advertise for people to go to the website and buy more. So I don't tend to have these designs at shows, unfortunately. But if people see it and they like it, hopefully they'll go pick it up somewhere.
Nice. But
yeah, Gildan, I try to say no to if at all possible. But in the past, I've cut corners in the past, and if you're ordering 400 tees for a big tour, sometimes you just got to get the cheapest thing out there,
Yeah.
But I try my best not to.
Yeah, you're right though about paying that price though of if you sell somebody a shirt and they don't want to wear it, like you get the $20 right then, but then you lose out on them walking around, with
like once it's beat up and it's in crappy condition, they're not going to wear it anymore.
Nope.
Especially if it's the second or third wear. Like, nah. Maybe if it's a 20-year-old shirt.
Or like you're saying too, like sometimes the ones that are just an awkward fit, like that sort of they don't curve to your body. Like I just don't I don't want to wear them. Like if they're not comfortable.
No, I totally agree.
Yeah, that always bums me out. If I see a good shirt, like I really like the design, I like how it looks, and then I put it on, it's like, oh, this doesn't really feel good. I'm not gonna like go out of my way to wear this.
Yeah, for real. It's got to feel good. And so I've sent a few of them. We were starting like a clothing line, so to speak, where called Bits and Rhymes. So we were just basically doing a bunch of video game, hip hop mashups, t-shirts. And to get the word out, the designer was like, well, let's just send them to all your famous friends. And I was like, well, that's going to get expensive. and we're like, okay. So basically all of my peers, anyone that I've done music with or wrestlers that I like, I sent them t-shirts. And so many of them responded like, dude, this is the most comfortable t-shirt I've ever felt in my life.
Nice.
And so when I hear that, I'm like, all right, then I know it's worth it. So granted, it's a $32 tee, but it feels really good.
In Defense of Ska will return in a moment.
Hey, welcome to Kyle Meredith with Consequence. This is where we check out some of the cool new things happening in the Consequence Podcast Network. I'm Kyle Meredith. Today, I get to talk with Adam Unz to discuss the latest season of The Opus.
Hi.
Well, first off, Adam, congratulations on the new season.
Thanks, Kyle.
So, which album is in the spotlight this season?
As always, it's presented by the Consequence Podcast Network and Sony Legacy Recordings. It's a music history series, and it's coming back to celebrate the 30th anniversary of Alice in Chains' sophomore album, Dirt.
What a classic album. I completely remember hearing it, you know, those first few listens back when it came out, 92. I probably picked it up in 93 and 94. It was just dark and heavy and so melodically beautiful at the same time.
I know. Dirt was truly a genre-bending collection that defined an era. So we're going to help our listeners to explore the context of what was happening back then and also hear how it still inspires artists and fans today.
Sounds great. And you can listen to it at consequence.net or, of course, wherever you get podcasts. It's great talking with you, Adam. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks, Kyle.
Okay, so let's talk about your song Recess.
I assume that's why I'm here. Let's talk about it.
See your credentials right here. This is off of your record, Buddy's Magic Toy Box, and it features Jer and Stack Like Pancakes.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a great straight up ska song.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about how this song came to be.
This was me trying to make my version of Super Rad. That's what this was. Yeah, I love Aquabats, and this was me being like, all right, if I was in that mode in that time period, I was trying to make that for kids, this is what it would sound like. And myself and Jared had talked for probably a year or so just about collaborating, and I knew like this has to be the right project, has to be the right thing. I had met Kellen of Stack Like Pancakes on a tour, maybe through MC Lars, probably on a Warped Tour or something. And I thought if I'm going to do a ska record, I got to get people on here who actually are experienced in the art of ska. You know, I wouldn't go and do a hip hop song and not work with hip hop producers or composers. So in my attempt to, bridge a gap a little bit with the indie rap and the ska world, I sent the record to those guys, and it's really the hardest record I've ever put together because there are like 7 instrumentalists on this song. So I did all the writing of the lyrics, but I needed help. So initially I used an AI software to just strip down one of my favorite ska songs and then just use the drum beat. And I was like, okay, this will be my starting point. So I basically like deconstruct an existing ska song and then like rebuild my own ska song. And that's kind of been my process when it comes to making something that I haven't made before. I'm like, let me take it apart, see if I can figure it out. So thanks to a bunch of different AI apps, I was able to just break apart songs and be like, all right, well, here's the melody line, and here's the horn line, and here's the drums, and here's what this sounds like just by itself. And so then I was able to get an idea. And so I put a scratch version together on an existing drum pattern. And I was like, okay, I think this sounds good. I was doing it on stream at the time. I was on Twitch, like making a song together on stream. And when I listened back, I'm like, man, this became Recess because like it sounded like crap. But again, it was me using a bunch of like stock loops and terrible plugins, just trying to get the idea going. And I needed to prove a concept before I would go to like experienced musicians and get them to collaborate. So I just started working on it from there. We built up something that was decent. I used a bunch of samples that sounded terrible. And I'm like, all right, we're going to replace these. So even when I gave it to Jared, I was like, I'm going to replace this with a real horn player. And Jared's like, dude, I'll play. Let me play trombone. And I'm like, yes, let's go. And so I take off all the terrible sampled, trombone that I had in there. And Jared just like killed it. And I'd already had the chorus. Like I said, I wrote all the lyrics. And so all I needed was someone else to just jump in and just go back and forth with me just to create that fun Recess energy. I don't know if you can make a song about Recess and just be by yourself. I feel like you got to be in a group with a group of friends jumping around and playing.
I guess it could be a sad recess if you're all by yourself.
Lonely recess. That could be a song. Sad recess.
Could you tell us the song that you started with?
Yeah, it was super rad.
Was it super rad? Okay, I thought it was. Yeah.
Yeah, it was totally super rad. But my friend Bradley Conklin, who goes by Drum Boy Advance, played me a drum pattern. Sounded close enough to it, but not completely ripping it off. And we just started from there. I was like, all right, with hip hop, it starts with the drums. Like the drums have to hit a certain way, and then it kind of can drive the rest. And so that's where I always start. And so I started with his drums. His drums were amazing. And so bringing that, I don't know how you guys with bands do any recording and get anything done. I'm used to just beats and raps, It's like one track for beat, one track for rap. Here we go. And I'm done a song in an hour. But this, oh my goodness, this song went through about 7 or 8 transformations in the process. And just being able to have, so once Bradley was finished the drums, he gave me, I guess, 6 drum tracks for that. My friend Danny T comes in and plays organ, and then he plays some trombone. And then my friend Nico comes in, plays some extra trombone lines. And then Jared comes in, does vocals and trombone lines. And then Kellen does amazing vocal runs. And so now we got 32 tracks of music here that we need to figure out. And my engineer, who is primarily a hip hop, engineer, was definitely in over his head. He's like, dude, I can usually finish one of your mixes in a day, but this one's going to take a while. And I'm like, no problem. And so we had 7 or 8 different mixes before we got to the right one. And he learned a lot in the process. So he's like, man, now I used to be really self-conscious about tracking live instruments, but going through this, I think I got it now, So, I was just really lucky to work with a lot of really great musicians who were like, well, a ska song should have this, and a ska song should hit here, and this should hit there, So, that helped out so much, and yeah, I'm in love with the song. Like I think it's one of the best songs I ever made, and I'm proud of it. And it's been able to, like, I play it now at like rap shows, and people are like, "Oh yeah, ska," and like it never fails. I can say, "Hey, like, can anybody skank in this crowd?" And never fails. I will get 3 or 4 people who want to come on stage and skank with me. So that's really cool. It's good. It's great to see that that ska still has some good memories in the minds and hearts of some people. So I'm doing my little part to keep ska going.
Thank you for your service.
Can you remember when you first became aware of Jer?
Yes, I think, if I'm not mistaken, probably was the Ska-Tune Network stuff. For sure, if you're not familiar, but I'm sure your listeners are, that Jared does cartoon covers in the ska, and cartoon video game covers in the style of ska, which really, really kicked butt, and I think went kind of low key viral online. And I think because of that, Ska-Tune Network wound up getting booked to play MagFest, and that was when I saw a live show, and I was just like blown away, like, holy cannoli, this is amazing. So that was MagFest 2020, I believe, was the first time I saw Ska-Tune Network, and then I believe they played again in 2023, and I was like, this is so awesome. First of all, seeing, and I'm sure for everybody, they like, when you see Jared's energy, and when you experience it live, it's so infectious, and you're like, oh my gosh, like, this is a person who's so into this that I can't not be into this, so a very infectious energy, which is what got me going. So we chatted ever since 2020. We've kind of kept in contact with emails or DMs, like, hey, I see what you're doing. Great work. Hey, I'm coming to Florida. Can you help me put something together? Hey, I'm coming to Arizona. Can you help me? Something like that. And then we played together last March, and I think that was when it finally clicked. We played a gig in Michigan called Stoop Fest, and I was it's like the country's biggest porch music festival, which is a weird flex, but okay. So yeah, this thing was really cool, and Jared was a headliner one night, and we had 2 or 3 conversations that weekend, and I was like, "Yo, I'm gonna send you something that I'm working on." And Jared's like, "Yeah, yeah, okay, let's do it." And boom, this time I was like, "I'm following up. I'm doing it." And so that was what happened. And once I sent the record over in its early iteration, I think Jared was like, "I see where this is going, and I want to be a part of it. So let me play some trombone. Let me do." So Jared does a 6 solo that kind of ends out the song, as well as some great vocal work. So, so yeah, it was just, I think with most same way most of my collaborations happen is like we see each other in public, or we see each other in passing at a bunch of jams, and then we're like, let's work together. Most of the time, it never happens, if I can be honest. But sometimes, if you push hard enough, it actually happens.
Will we hear a Megaran verse on an upcoming Jer release at any point?
I hope so. I'm not at liberty to say.
If it's not already in the works, I'm just putting that out there.
I'll just say, if you got ears, then listen out and hang tight. That's all I'll say.
Now, with Stack Like Pancakes, I was kind of looking it up, and I saw that there's an MC Lars track in 2019, Bartleby the Scrivener, I think, where
Yes.
you and Stack Like Pancakes are on the track.
That's correct. That was the first time we worked together.
I was wondering if that was sort of the beginning of you guys having any sort of working relationship together.
It was, and even then, I hadn't met them. Maybe I did. You know, I feel like we had met them, and then many years later, we did the Bartleby track. Lars was like, "We got to do a ska record," and we're like, "Absolutely!" And so we did it. And I don't think we had even met in person at that time. So later, we wound up doing that track, and it just came out so well. And I was like, where can I find a ska band? And I'm like, oh yeah, Stack Like Pancakes. And I think I caught them at a good time, because they're all kind of separated. They all live in different places after the pandemic. And Kellen was like, yes, absolutely. And we would Kellen's also pretty active on Twitch, like playing video games and streaming. And so am I. So we kind of met up there, and we would play like Fortnite together and things like that, and get to know each other. And then that was that made making the song so much easier. So yeah, I'm a big fan of them. I love their stuff. So I'm glad we were able to work on something cool.
There's a video, I think I saw it on like Instagram Reels or something. It's a short video, and you're playing like keyboard bass to a ska song.
Yeah.
It's like 30 seconds long.
Oh yeah.
Was this part of the demoing of Recess, or is this something different?
Yes, that was me doing the terrible demos in the beginning. I think I'm playing it over. I'm probably playing it over the super rad drums at that time. And so it was like, I was on stream just being like, how's this sound? And I'm like on the keyboard trying to do a bass line. And I'm like, this probably sounds terrible, but here we go. And so that helped me out a lot, just as far as that was me working on the demo version so that I could let people hear it and work on a collab together.
So this record, Buddy's Magic Toy Box, this is a kid's record. I want to talk about it a little bit, because I feel like a lot of people get to a point in their career where they say, it's time for me to do the kids record. And I don't feel like they often deliver on something that's really got any legs on it. But your record is really good. It seems like you put a lot of thought into making it be something that kids would like, some things that their parents would also like, that it was something that would be fun, but also not talk down to kids. Like, it's got good lessons, like good, like emotional lessons for kids. So tell me a little bit about the decision and the process of making this record.
Well, for me, I'd experienced such a big change in my life where I became a new father. And around that time, it was in an unconventional way. We fostered and then adopted a baby that came to us at like 3 weeks old. And so we basically went through the entire, process of, raising a baby, and eventually you want to play music for them, and you realize how impressionable young minds and all minds are. And I think that's what encouraged me to do it. It was like, yeah, let me try this. And I really didn't think I could do it. I was just like, I don't know if it's going to work out. Not to say that I'm such a like gangster rapper that this won't, work with my persona. I think I'm already such a, my music's clean. It's already kind of happy go lucky. So it's not much of a stretch, but it was very important to me to make a record that talked to kids and not like at them. I think just being a teacher for a long time taught me how to communicate with children. And I wanted to make sure that I was being very aware of how to talk to kids and make something that they would actually listen to. And when I listened to a lot of kids' music, I was like, wait, are any children actually listening to this? Because I feel like a lot of it is just like music adults make to feel good about themselves. And I wanted to make sure that I had real lessons that I'd experienced when I was teaching and as well as being a parent, So I wanted the record to kind of grow up with him. It starts off with counting and simple stuff, that he's doing right now at 2. And by the end of the record, we're talking about choosing the right friends that support each other, not judging a book by its cover, not discriminating against people, things like that. So the values and the stories start to grow up and they start to age as a child would. So I want this to be a record that can be played for, kids of any age and brought back to them later when they grow up and they'll understand it. In the meantime, they might be like, oh, that's a great beat. It's a great chorus, blah, blah, blah. But my kid loves fruit. So writing a song about fruit was easy, things like that. So it was so much fun to make. I'm so proud of the record. We had a really big Grammy push campaign and we did not get the nomination, unfortunately, but again, no regrets. I feel so good about this record, about the impact it's had on people. They've been like just telling me that they love it so much, that their kids love it, they sing along with it. And I'm just proud because that's really like I didn't think I could do this. So it just really just impressed me that, we stuck through it and really stuck the landing. And I just, I feel so great about it. So I'm proud. There are no regrets. There are no mistakes in this thing. So I'm super, super proud.
There's a song about bullying where I think that's what I like about it is you address the issue and how it's affecting everybody, and you even you even give kids a little bit of insight into like maybe what's causing bullying, so as not to necessarily paint them as like evil, but as people that deserve empathy as well.
Yeah. That was the toughest record to write, honestly. It's because it's like I remember talking about it on stream, just like talking through it with some supporters and being like, what's the answer? Like I'm used to songs being like, all right, here's 3 verses, and the third verse is, the resolution. And there really isn't an easy resolution for bullying. Just being like, oh man, turn the other cheek. And it's like, oh, that's easy for you to say when you're getting punched in the head every day. Or, oh, that kid is really going through things. So be empathetic. And it's like also easy for you to say when someone's getting punched in the head, So it's super difficult. And so I had such a hard time just like coming up with a resolution, but I thought understanding is the way, So at the same time, you can be aware of the situation, you can get away from the situation, of course, but I think it's important to understand why that kid might be lashing out at you because they have some serious issues going on at home that they're trying to fix. So they could be being bullied at home. So yeah, it was maybe the toughest record I had to write in a very long time because I'm used to just having that clear-cut solution. And I realized that when it comes to bullying, there is no clear-cut answer. So yeah, that was not easy.
Yeah, but I guess having a kid, knowing the right things to say to your own kid is the same kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
The story of rap is another one I really like because you give kids like a crash course in the history of rap, which is cool because I think like that information is out there, but I don't think you don't really learn about the history of rap usually when you're that young. It comes later when you get really into it.
Yeah, that was fun for me. It's the 50th year of hip hop, celebrating it. So I think if you're in the process of celebrating it, you should probably know where it comes from. So I had a really, really fun time putting that together. And it's probably my favorite on the record too. because maybe some adults might learn something from it.
Yeah, and it's got a little bit of a reggae groove too.
And it's a reggae groove. Yeah.
Yeah. Was that just the beat that it came with, or was that a nod to its roots coming from DJ Kool Herc?
That was definitely a nod for sure. DJ Kool Herc is from Jamaica, and that's one thing that I didn't get to mention in the song. But yes, I think that reggae dancehall roots and hip hop roots are connected big time. You could ask anybody in New York, I'm sure, with the huge Caribbean impact that has been on hip hop since the beginning. So yeah, absolutely, that was not an accident. That was me wanting something that had a bit of a reggae groove to it for the song. So yeah, I'm glad you picked up on that.
We'll be right back after this. Hey, welcome to Kyle Meredith with Consequence. This is where we check out some of the cool new things happening in the Consequence Podcast Network. I'm Kyle Meredith. Today, I get to talk with Adam Unz to discuss the latest season of The Opus.
Hi.
Well, first off, Adam, congratulations on the new season.
Thanks, Kyle.
So, which album is in the spotlight this season?
As always, it's presented by the Consequence Podcast Network and Sony Legacy Recordings. It's a music history series, and it's coming back to celebrate the 30th anniversary of Alice in Chains' sophomore album, Dirt.
What a classic album. I completely remember hearing it, those first few listens back when it came out, 92. I probably picked it up in 93 and 94. It was just dark and heavy and so melodically beautiful at the same time.
I know. Dirt was truly a genre-bending collection that defined an era. So we're going to help our listeners to explore the context of what was happening back then and also hear how it still inspires artists and fans today.
Sounds great. And you can listen to it at consequence.net or, of course, wherever you get podcasts. It's great talking with you, Adam. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks, Kyle.
I want to ask about your involvement with Clerks 3, because you got a song on the soundtrack. And you got on the soundtrack just through a Kevin Smith post, right? And responding to a post?
Just responding to a post. Sometimes it's worth it to just respond to a tweet, dude. People are like, man, how do you make these connections? Oh, man, you're so connected. Oh, goodness gracious, you're so connected. And it's like, nah, I just responded to a tweet. So, granted, I had to send the right song. I mean, if I would have sent The Story of Rap, it probably wouldn't have worked. But, I had to send the right song and someone looked at it. So, yeah, Kevin Smith put out a call for songs to go on the Clerks soundtrack, Clerks 3. And, it's really cool. I think in the past he's done that too. I don't know if he's done like a Twitter search, but he's usually, hired independent bands to do most of his soundtracks. And so he's like, hey, if you got a song that'll work. And that's funny because we literally don't have a story. We don't know he didn't give us the script of Clerks 3. It was just like, well, based on what you know about Kevin Smith, send me a song that might work. And I was like, absolutely, Tractor Beam is my jam. And in a lot of ways, I had a fan point out, and I didn't realize it, that he thought Tractor Beam is like a precursor to Buddy's Magic Toy Box. It was the lead single on my previous album, Live 95. And it's very sing-songy, catchy type stuff. And that's really what I did for a lot of the Buddy's Magic Toy Box albums. So yeah, it was kind of the beginning of me unlocking a little bit of that side of me. Yeah. So where was I? Oh yeah. So I responded to the tweet. I send the message. And then we just wait. And like a day later, I get a DM from some dude named Chris. And he's like, hey, did you write that song all the way? That song that you sent to Kevin Smith? And I was like, who is this? And he's like, I'm a friend of Kevin. I was like, yeah, right. Like, I don't believe this at all. And I'm like, are you sure? So I start just doing some Googles and searching his name and in association with Kevin Smith. And I'm like, oh, snap. He's like actually appeared in a couple of his movies, Kevin's so great at like hiring his friends. So yeah, this guy's like actually a part of the universe. So I'm like, all right, cool. And he's like, all right, I just wanted to know if you wrote it all the way. I'm like, yes. And surprisingly, I mean, I'm a hip hop artist, so we do sample a lot. But this was one of the first songs where I made the beat, I wrote the song, I mixed it, I produced it completely, and then I put it out. So there's not a lot of songs in my catalog that I'm 100% in ownership of, but that was one of them. And I'm like, yep, it's just me. And he's like, yeah, let's go. And so then I get an email and they're like, hey, we want to put this in the movie. And he's like, oh, we're going to pay you X amount of dollars. And I'm like, cool. But how about y'all give me a ticket to the premiere? And they were like, oh, yeah, no problem. And sent me 2 tickets to the premiere in Hollywood and got to meet them, got to meet the whole cast. And that was just an amazing time. And I mean, I would have just took that over the money, to be honest. I just wanted to hang out, and be a part of that, getting to meet like so many cool people. So, but yeah, man, yeah, kids, I don't know, Twitter's kind of a bit of a cesspool these days, but the amount of accessibility you're able to pull off just meeting with people or just responding to stuff, literally anybody could see it at any time. So, when I have friends or people in bands that are like, oh, I don't do Twitter, I don't have a Twitter, I'm like, what? You're completely missing out. That couldn't have happened on Instagram. Like, I don't think that would have even worked out that way. So it's just Twitter. So yeah, there are still some positive points to Twitter. So yeah, that was just me shooting my shot.
Yeah, this is the thing that bums me out the most about Twitter becoming the cesspool that it is now, is because it's the thing that you can tweet at famous people and they'll actually respond to you.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah. You could say someone sucks and you probably get a response quicker than like, oh, I love your stuff. But still, the point is, yeah, like they could literally see exactly what you are saying to them and they can respond to it in real time, which is insane. Like there's no other place where you can get that kind of accessibility with people you don't know.
The footage of you and Kevin, where Kevin like singing or, singing along to the song, was that at the premiere?
No, that was at San Diego Comic-Con. So that was
okay.
a few months earlier, but I just kind of saved it for that moment. But yeah, he had a meet and greet at Comic-Con, and after it was done, I asked if I could, have a moment to meet him. And when I walked in the room, he was singing the song. I was like, "What the heck, dude?" And I was like, "I got to film you doing that." And he's like, "Okay." And,
I think another person that was on that same soundtrack was Chris Crow from Loser.
Yes, I know Chris. He's great.
You guys have played together because Chris is from the sort of the chip and the ska scene.
Yes, it's funny. Chris was, I feel so bad, but Chris sent me some chip tune parts for Recess. So Chris was supposed to also be featured on Recess, but we just thought the record just got way too big. There were too many cooks in the kitchen, so I didn't get a moment to use it. But maybe on some sort of remix or I think another song we should totally build together. So there will be some collaborations with Chris. We're doing the Kevin Smith cruise together in February. So hopefully,
yeah, I saw that. That's February 2024.
Yes, so hopefully by then we'll have some songs together.
Interesting experience to do a cruise.
Yeah, have you ever been on a cruise before?
Yes, I did the Joko cruise a couple years ago, Jonathan Colton's cruise. It was actually 2020, right when the pandemic kicked off, and I thought we weren't going to get off the boat, so it was very, very nerve-wracking.
You were on a boat. You were on a cruise when the pandemic hit.
Oh yeah, I was on a boat. March 2020. We were on a boat, and Will Wheaton canceled. He was like, "Oh, I'm not getting on that," and a few other people did too. But I was like, "Man, come on! It's a boat. They're paying for everything. Let's go." And so we get on this boat, and we're just like, guys. Someone said like, don't get on the internet. Don't watch TV. Just stay in the moment and enjoy yourself. And we'll deal with the world when we get back. And I'm like, great idea. And then one day at dinner, like the second day, someone's on the internet and they pull out their phone and like, dude, Tom Hanks got it. And then someone else is like, the NBA season is canceled. Oh my God. And then like kind of mass panic slowly starts spreading throughout the boat. But we're like, you know what? Let's just have fun, guys. We're here. Like, don't worry about it. And yeah, we try our best to forget about it. And then our first stop, we were supposed to go to Turks and Caicos, and then we get a call from Turks saying that they're not going to let an American boat dock right now because they don't feel safe. And so we're like, oh boy, are we literally going to be on this boat for a week? Like, we're not getting off. Then we go to Bahamas. Luckily, I think it was Norwegian. They have their own private island on the Bahamas. So we were able to get off there and do our thing. But it was just ridiculous. And then we got home safely somehow, but this was a really crazy time. They were just walking around squirting the hand sanitizer at our hands every time they saw us. And just tried our best to stay safe, but it was very scary.
So no one on the boat got sick then?
Not that I know of. I mean, I don't know how much they would have told us, to be honest. But yeah, as far as I know, no one got sick. And when we docked, I was like, oh, they're not going to let us off this boat. They're going to make us quarantine or something. I'd heard stories about people just quarantining in their rooms on boats. And sure enough, though, they let us all get off. They were like, all right, let's go. And we all just left. I was like, wait, really? Okay, let's go. And this is before, this is like, it's still very early. So it's before vaccines, before masking even, people were just like, let's go. We just got off and got out there. And thank goodness nobody got sick.
Oh, that sounds crazy.
That is nuts. It's absolutely nuts. I did not think we were going to make it out there.
Let's go back a little bit to 2016 when a contestant on Jeopardy mentioned Nerdcore, and Alex Trebek made a crack about it. Made a joke saying that sounds like these are losers. So you did did it start with you? The verse you did on
Yeah, it started with me. That night I was on tour and I saw it, and that same night I kept getting tagged in it like nonstop. But what people don't realize is when something hits TV for Jeopardy, it's probably a month old at that point. Like they aren't live. They film 3, 4, 5 episodes a day, and they've moved on by the time it hits TV. But it went viral. It still goes viral every couple of years, and so I was like, all right, I'm going to respond. And so I kicked a little freestyle that night from like a hotel somewhere in like Alabama. I don't know. I was in some weird place, and just basically being like, oh, it's easy to say you're the smartest when you got all the note cards, and how can you call nerds losers when your whole show is built for nerds, and things like that. Just pointing out the hypocrisy in what he was saying. And I wasn't necessarily offended, but I thought it was super ironic. It's like, all right, of all the ways to go viral, it's you teasing people for being intelligent or awkward. Like, what? Like, come on, dude. So it was very ironic. And so I put that little freestyle out, and the next morning it was on TMZ. And TMZ's like, oh, a little, some, I don't know, they just kind of downplayed me, like local rapper strikes back, And I remember them, like the guys who look at the TV and respond, where they were like, well, that kind of was weak. Like, maybe they are losers. I think that was all they said, and then they just moved on. And I'm like, oh wow, that was not very very nice. And yeah, they never mentioned it again. And then a bunch of the homies. I was on tour with MC Chris. Shout out to MC Chris. And so I was like, well, I'm going to use this 5 seconds of fame and make it 30 minutes. And so I then would film the crowd at the end of my set saying "Suck it, Trebek," and then I would post it every night. Hey, the losers have something to say to you, Alex. Suck it, Trebek. And it was hilarious to me because these are like huge crowds of maybe 300, 400, 500 folks every night, just suck it, Trebek. And I didn't mean anything by it, but it was super fun. And eventually, I think it started getting a little traction, and MC Chris asked me to stop. He's like, "Can you not do that? Like, you're giving us a bit of a bad name here, And I'm like, what? Why not? Like, let's just have fun with it." And he did a big interview for like Billboard or something like that about it. And then literally every nerdcore rapper came out of the woodwork and was like, let's write a diss track to Alex Trebek. And so we all did, and it was called like "Who is Alex Trebek?" And I doubt he ever heard it. Like, I'm sure he moved on. He's never commented on what happened. And on a bit of a morbid note, he's dead, which means I won that beef, I think. So we won. The losers win. I said that one time. I said, I've only been in a beef with one person and he's dead. So don't try me. I'd say that's a win.
This was a brief moment where Nerdcore was discussed in sort of a albeit brief moment in the mainstream. But can you give people like a crash course of Nerdcore as a scene?
It's very difficult. But I can give my perspective. I think it's funny, like it depends on kind of who you ask, because they've all seen it in different places. I know Lars has a really good description. That there was a band named Nerf Herder who was from Oxnard, and so they called their music Nardcore. And then from there, that started to get maybe just changed in just the normal, the way things get passed around. And someone just said Nerdcore once. MC Frontalot, who's in the Bay Area, is credited with Nerdcore hip hop, and that's the first time I'd heard it. Second time I heard it was a rapper named YT Cracker, who made an album called Nerd Rap Entertainment System, and he just took a bunch of Nintendo samples and rapped on them, and it was brilliant. And he was like this big time hacker who was like, that's where like the YT Cracker came from. He's like a white hat hacker, but I thought it was a very original name. And so that was all happening while I was making music that maybe wasn't, or maybe was Nerdcore, but just didn't have a name. And I was doing Mega Man stuff and other things. And someone said one day, "Yo, that sounds like Nerdcore." And I was like, "Wait, what's that?" And so I looked it up, and it was a Nerdcore forum, and I started chatting with the Nerdcore forum people and having a really good time. And then later I would meet Frontalot, Lars, Chris, and all the other like OGs of Nerdcore. And so for far as I know, I think Nerdcore could have been defined as, or is defined as, like music. Because at that time it was hip hop, but I think it's any type of music that is maybe giving a nod to any nerdy, topics, things that they really loved. So it was pop culture stuff. It was coding. It was, relationship woes. It was all these other things. But yeah, then I discovered that there's like Harry Potter, there's wizard rock, there's folk that's nerdy, there's so many other genres. The Proto Men are like a rock opera, so all those can fit under the umbrella of Nerdcore. But I feel like what Nerdcore sounds like is hip hop, mostly based on the thing that kids loved when they watched, like anime, video games, comic book movies, pop culture. I believe Nerdcore, the biggest presence of Nerdcore is now on YouTube, and it's YouTubers that rap about their favorite anime, comic books, video games, things like that, and get huge numbers. Creating music on a almost like a weekly basis, very much like on a content creator's vloggers kind of schedule, where they have a certain day where new songs come out at a certain time and new videos and things like that. And it's been a really interesting journey that Nerdcore has been taking. And so, yeah, I think that's where Nerdcore exists now, is just music about nerdy stuff, and mostly lives on the internet.
Your first record as Random wasn't really so much in this vein. It was like after that, when you did the Mega Man record, that you really kind of went into this direction more.
Yeah, the first record is called The Call. It was very much like a conscious rap album, very much like socio-political, spiritual, underground rap album, just about the way things are in the world. And this came out in 2006, so this is like a few years after 9/11. This is George W. Bush, second term. Like a lot of things are happening in the world, and it just, I wrote about a lot of that. And honestly, when I finished the record, I was kind of drained. Like it was very much a stressful process, like talking about these things. And I didn't want to make any more music. I was like, well, I said everything I need to say. Like I'm done. And then I just took a long break and started playing video games again. And that's where my next inspiration came from. I was like, I got it. Like video games, I love the music, and hip hop, we love the music. So why don't we sample and just make something new by utilizing our heroes and this music that we grew up with, much like our heroes used jazz, they used funk, they used soul, they used all these other genres of music to create the hip hop tracks we love. So why not take my classics, which are Mega Man and Nintendo sounds, and try to make new songs out of them. That was it.
Were you aware of anyone else fiddling around with video game sounds and stuff when you were doing that?
Not really. I Googled just to see if anybody was doing it, and I couldn't find anybody. Like I said, the Whitey Cracker album came out the year before mine did. Whitey Cracker did all Nintendo themes, and so I featured him on the album when it came out on the Mega Man album. The closest I could find was the Megas. They're an LA band who did. They would replay the music from the Mega Man games and then sing songs as the bosses. So that's like the rock version of what I do.
I'm curious your relationship with the mini bosses, since they're in this video game world and they're also from Arizona.
Yeah, they're the OGs in this. Like when I started off,
Well, they're not from, but they relocated there, like just like you did.
yeah. It's funny. Like we're not as close as one would think with us both being in Arizona, both doing video game music. It would seem like we should be playing a show together every month, but we don't. But we've played maybe 4 or 5 shows together in the past. Their lineup has changed a bunch, and they have different levels of commitment, availability. So yeah, when there's Comic Cons and things happening, we tend to play together. I love those guys. They're the OGs. Like they were the first bands I heard of. There was them, The Advantage, and the Neskimos were the very first like video game cover bands that I'd ever heard of. And then when I moved to Arizona, I was like, oh snap, they're in Arizona too? What? I can see them all the time. And so I would go to all their shows. And but yeah, we haven't done any collaborations, which I think would be fun. But we have done a handful of shows together.
Your mini bosses do like sort of like a math rock version of like old video game songs. And they also like some of those bands are like super like precise and tight, but the mini bosses are like loose and kind of goofy.
Yes, they are. They're very goofy. I love that about them. They're not really concerned with like nailing it exactly, but they do really interesting, fun, goofy, covers and versions. One of their running jokes is DuckTales. They love DuckTales, so they play it like multiple times during the set, and it gets wackier each time and things like that. So yeah, they're really fun.
In Defense of Ska will return in a moment.
Hey, welcome to Kyle Meredith with Consequence. This is where we check out some of the cool new things happening in the Consequence Podcast Network. I'm Kyle Meredith. Today, I get to talk with Adam Unz to discuss the latest season of The Opus.
Hi.
Well, first off, Adam, congratulations on the new season.
Thanks, Kyle.
So, which album is in the spotlight this season?
As always, it's presented by the Consequence Podcast Network and Sony Legacy Recordings. It's a music history series, and it's coming back to celebrate the 30th anniversary of Alice in Chains' sophomore album, Dirt.
What a classic album. I completely remember hearing it, those first few listens back when it came out, 92. I probably picked it up in 93 and 94. It was just dark and heavy and so melodically beautiful at the same time.
I know. Dirt was truly a genre-bending collection that defined an era. So we're going to help our listeners to explore the context of what was happening back then and also hear how it still inspires artists and fans today.
Sounds great. And you can listen to it at consequence.net or, of course, wherever you get podcasts. It's great talking with you, Adam. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks, Kyle.
You recently, a couple of years ago, you wrote a memoir kind of telling your story. And one of the things that you talked about was you getting into becoming a musician started with, a tragedy. You're dealing with the tragedy of your uncle and him getting killed while you were at home, and how this was a critical moment for you choosing to be a musician.
Yeah, my uncle he's my favorite uncle, and I felt so weird and like guilty, for something that I really had no control over, but he gave me the choice to be there, to come with him, and he was killed like, violently in like a random rest stop killing, and I just realized like, man, if I would have made one different decision, I would have been there too, and how different, things could have turned out. And so it was music that kept me home. Normally I would be the first one wanting to ride shotgun with my uncle, but I said no because I was in the process of writing new music, and we were just in a zone and feeling good, and I said nah. And then this terribly tragic thing happened, and I was like, man, like I really could have been there. So that made me rethink everything and just take things a little more seriously, including music, which at that time, even the songs that I was so excited about weren't even, like they weren't even going to be heard. Like this was stuff I was just recording on a very simple, uh, 4-track recorder for songs that were never going to come out. Like these songs probably haven't been heard by 10 people. But I was just so into it that, I didn't want to stop this session. And so, yeah, that definitely made me change so much about my approach for sure. Sometimes it takes a tragedy or a really terrible thing, to get you to change direction. And that was it for me.
I read an interview where I think you said that this incident or this had an impact on you choosing to be clean and to be positive when it came to making music.
Yeah, for sure. I think that, it made me think like, well, I could, make. So the weird part of it is that the gentleman that killed my uncle was an aspiring rapper, and for some reason he thought that, being violent in your music was what people wanted to hear, and then also, like, more importantly, he felt that being violent in real life was what violent rappers did, so in order for him to appear real, uh he really wanted to actually do the things that he was rapping about. And so that just made me think like, wow, like that, hopefully that's not normal and what everyone thinks, but it definitely made me think, whoa, like I certainly don't want to be the kind of rapper that sends this message. So, whether I can, change anybody's mind or not, is irrelevant. But I knew for myself, I just wanted to do something that was a little different, and so therefore, I've been able to maintain a 15-year rap career without like foul language, which is pretty amazing, I think. But I don't make a big deal of it. Like I never mention it like rap that's free from foul language, no cursing here, it's more or less just something I do. And so, if people notice it, that's cool. But if not, that's also cool.
I mean, you have to be a little bit more creative to fill in beats and syllables without dropping the F-bomb.
Yeah, for sure. There's been some times where I was like, man, this would be the perfect time for an F-bomb. But then I'm like, nah.
When you kind of got connected to the the nerdcore hip hop scene, and then you became sort of part of the scene. Did you feel like, through since then, did you feel like ever like I don't want to be only seen as this, or I don't want to be pigeonholed, or did you really enjoy just kind of that place, being in that place?
I enjoyed it, just being able to. Of course, any artist doesn't want to be pigeonholed, but I enjoy the scene because it's a community that's very supportive of each other, and it enabled me to stand out, and to do something that was different from what I was hearing. So yeah, I enjoyed it, but I've tried to branch out, and it's almost never worked out, and for a long time I used to be Random, aka Megaran, and it's just that I don't have enough bandwidth to possibly be two people for two different audiences, and therefore it didn't work out. I'm like, I'm Megaran, that's who I am. But some days I want to talk about video games, some days I want to talk about how much Donald Trump sucks, so so yeah, it was just a matter of being comfortable enough with myself to just be my entire self the whole time, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So this year you put together the Dream Master Mixtape Festival in Yuma. Can you talk a little bit about what inspired you to put this festival together?
Yeah, pretty simple. A lot of people were like, why don't you play this festival? Why aren't you on Coachella? Why aren't you on this? And I thought, I'll probably never get on those. So why don't we just make our own festival? And I was just really, really excited about trying to put that together. And my manager Jeff was like, "Let's do it," And we played this venue once in Yuma, and met a guy who was, man, he was just one of the coolest venue owners I'd ever met. We felt very similar, both new fathers, both music heads, and we clicked on so many things. And I said, well, what if I could bring like all my friends that make music or people that I've been on tours with or things like that, and we do a little weekend festival here. Would you be down? He's like, yeah. So he was nice enough to open his doors and to support that. And yeah, I'm super happy about it. And Yuma's a place that's like right midway between LA and yeah, it's right between LA and Arizona. So it's like you can get to either one of them pretty quickly. And so yeah, we've been able to put out a great festival with a great lineup, and we're gonna do it again next year.
Nice. Yeah. So let's see. You had AJJ, another Phoenix band, or Arizona, I guess, at this point, band.
Yes, we wanted the mini bosses. Hopefully this year we'll get them, but we were not able to.
Yeah. And mini bosses, if you're listening, let's do it next year. What's your relationship or history with AJJ?
We don't really have any like history per se. I mean, I think that I've just hung out a ton with various guys from the band, just going to shows, over the years. That's kind of been it, really. I think we were just both in Arizona, both hanging out. And Sean's just an amazing guy. We did a podcast together during the pandemic and just talking about where AJJ was going and things like that. And so we had we just we just met up a bunch, and we're just very, very like cordial, friendly, grinding musicians and bands. And yeah, I just wanted to, get some bands on the thing that would not be expected. It's like, oh man, you may not expect Mega Ran and AJJ. Like, let's do something cool. So yeah, it just kind of worked out.
Yeah, it always seems to me like when I think about the sort of Phoenix scene, it always seems like there's just people who are connected or friends or play together that you wouldn't think. Like the scene really is very cross genre.
Oh, for sure. I think it's helped by a lot of the really great DIY venues we have here, like the Trunk Space, things like that, where I wind up playing multi-genre shows, and I love them. They're like my favorite part. So so yeah, like being able to do that in these really fun DIY all ages spaces, I think that's what brings all the bands together for sure.
You also had Open Mike Eagle on the festival, who is a friend of the show. I was looking up to see, and the earliest I saw you guys collaborate together was in like 2011.
Yes, we've been friends a very long time. I think ironically, Mike and my wife went to school together. They went to college together. And
Oh,
and Mike, I went to, I think maybe I don't know, we were playing a show together somewhere, and my wife was like, "Hey, I think I know that guy. We went to school together." And then we went and had dinner that night and just became friends. And we've toured together a bunch, 2010, 2011, 2012. We've done some music together. Yeah, we hang out whenever I'm in LA. I try to make sure to hang out with him, and likewise. So yeah, we've been really good friends for a long time. I think we're all in this like weird underground rap space, just trying to figure things out all the time. And so yeah, we both love wrestling. So yeah, we're good friends.
let's see. I want to go back to wrestling. I don't really actually know a lot about wrestling, so I got some friends gave me some wrestling questions. But first, I want to talk about how you made a record called "Wrestling Is Real and People Are Fake."
Yes. Usually around WrestleMania in March, April, I try to come out with some wrestling themed thing. And this year was "Wrestling Is Real, People Are Fake." I heard Jake the Snake say that one time in an interview, and I was like, that is great, And so yeah, it's just songs, maybe about 7 songs about how much I love wrestling, just full of references to 80s and 90s wrestlers and a lot of fun moments throughout history. And yeah, I even have a couple of wrestlers like featured on there, and they just like do some singing or things like that. So it's been a really fun journey through wrestling for me, where now like wrestlers actually kind of know who I am, which is pretty wild.
Oh yeah. Does Sami Zayn know who you are?
I don't think so. Unfortunately, because I love Sami Zayn and I think he loves ska. So
Sami Zayn is the ska loving wrestler. Yes.
yes, so I've actually sat next to him a couple of times, but we didn't get to talk. I was so nervous. I was an extra on an episode of SmackDown in Phoenix, and I have a friend, Xavier Woods, who wrestles, and because I knew someone, they didn't make me sit in the like the back area where like extras sit, where there's like no windows and a boring little locker room. So he came and peeked his head in and was like, "Hey, come with me," and pulled me out of there. Was like, "Come sit with the come sit with the guys." And I was like, "Okay." So he had me sit at catering, and I'm sitting next to Sami Zayn, and he was like texting, and I was just like, "I'm not going to say anything to him, but this is pretty amazing because I love him." But yeah, I never said anything to him, but I was right next to him.
Adam, are you into wrestling?
Not really. I mean, I've definitely watched a fair amount of it. I'm just not like fanatic about it.
So yeah, both of us we're not really super knowledgeable about wrestling, but my friend Dane, he sent me a few questions that I could ask you about wrestling. So, what wrestler hooked you to the point of becoming a lifelong wrestling fan?
I would be Macho Man Randy Savage. In the 80s, he was always my favorite. Just so intense. The music, the flying elbow drop, and Miss Elizabeth, who was gorgeous. Like, really cool robes and outfits, and he was just a larger than life character. And I didn't like Hulk Hogan, so anybody who was going up against him was my guy.
What didn't you like about Hulk Hogan?
I just didn't like that Hulk Hogan got all of the shine, all the glory.
Mhm.
I just felt like, man, like there's no room for anybody else. Like Hulk Hogan, I think he main evented every WrestleMania for like 10 years straight,
Yeah.
where it was like, it was just him, and they never gave anybody else a moment to kind of shine with him. And him and Macho Man had this really like real type of feud where they would say things about each other that were kind of true. And at that time when he did, it was like, oh, I agree with that. I agree with what Macho Man's saying. Like, you are a glory hog and this and that. So yeah, it made me not like Hogan much.
What about Ultimate Warrior?
Ultimate Warrior was fun. I love the colors and the intensity. Looking back, he wasn't very like technically sound. Like, he wasn't a guy who could do a bunch of wrestling moves. He would just pick you up, drop you, and then jump on top of you, and then the match was over. And but yeah, I loved his intensity. That like he would run to the ring and shake the ropes, and yeah, he was fun.
What about George the Animal Steel?
Oh man, I love George.
Eating the
Animal Steel.
turnbuckles.
He would eat the turnbuckle. Oh man, he was such a sweetheart. Like, he was wild, but he loved Miss Elizabeth, and he was sweet when he needed to be.
Andre the Giant.
Yes, always love Andre the Giant. Oh, wrestling federation. And so he turned evil, and he like rips Hulk Hogan's necklace off of his neck, and it made like Hogan like cry. So I love that.
Undertaker.
Undertaker is great. So like talented and skilled. Like, the guy was 6'10", but could just like move like a little guy. So I always love people who could move, big guys who could jump and make some really cool stuff happen. So yeah, I like the Undertaker a lot.
Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Oh, he was great, man. Hacksaw was awesome. I met him at a convention. We wound up like with our tables right next to each other, and he was like such a amazing guy. Like, he was so friendly, him and his wife. So that makes it even better when people can be really nice people.
Heck yeah. Junkyard Dog.
Oh yeah, I love Junkyard Dog. One of my favorites. I just read a book on him, which is really great. It's called The King of New Orleans. And I didn't realize, so many of those guys who came to WWF and just were kind of like mid-carders, show openers, were like legends in their towns,
Mm.
you know, and so Vince McMahon would go and scoop up the greatest people in these different territories and then make them kind of like nobody's, you know, somewhere else. And how like he was such a like legendary figure in New Orleans. And yeah, I love Junkyard Dog.
Nice.
So, what about like current wrestlers? Like when the dust settles on 2023, who do you think's had the best run of the year?
Actually, it's a bit of an underrated pick, but this guy named Will Ospreay. He's a British wrestler who mostly wrestles in Japan, but he's probably the most technical, like high flying, proficient wrestler around, and he's had some amazing matches, but a lot of them don't get on like TV, you know, where he's not having millions of people watch him. But the critics have acclaimed him as like the guy, and he's a free agent right now, so he may wind up going to WWE. Who knows? But Will Ospreay is like amazing. He does moves that look like they came out of a video game. Like I don't even understand how he's able to do some of the stuff he does.
All right, so, and I don't even understand what this question means. So this is from Dane. With the Survivor Series coming up in the next couple weeks, who would you choose to be the perfect Survivor Series squad?
Well, if I had to pick a squad, because it's usually like a 4-man team or 5-man team, I think, and they take on another 5-man team in like an elimination match. So if I was gonna pick 5, I would get Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, Cody, and the New Day, Kofi and Xavier. That would be my unbeatable team.
All right. So Dane also told me something about called Battle Rumble, that you're an event you created that celebrates wrestling and hip hop culture.
Yes.
Can you speak on that at all?
Yeah, we just announced it last week. It's happening January in Tampa, the day before WWE's big Royal Rumble event, and in Tampa. So if anybody's already in town or coming in town for wrestling, they can have something cool to do the night before. So it's gonna be a concert. There's gonna be battle raps. There's gonna be wrestlers there. There's gonna be Nintendo 64s and video game consoles, so we can play wrestling games. Live music, live DJs, giveaways, prizes. It's gonna be a lot of fun. We have some incredible sponsors that have just come through with some amazing prizes. So Direct Sound, it has great headphones. Native Instruments going to give us some, you know, some beat making materials. Lots of cool stuff is going to happen. So I'm really excited about this. I do events around wrestling events kind of a lot, but this is one like no other for me. So we're looking forward to a really, really amazing time. And you can get tickets now at Megaran.com.
Thank you for listening to In Defense of Ska. To support the show, sign up for our Patreon. Intro and outro music by Slow Gherkin from the EP Lives. Additional music by Dan P. and the Bricks. Please rate and review the podcast and tell a friend. Follow at In Defense of Ska on social media. The book In Defense of Ska by Aaron Carnes is available from Clash Books. Order it online. Chris Reeves of SPI is our editor. This is your co-host, Adam Davis of Omnigon, leaving you by saying ska now more than ever. Oh, you know what we forgot? We forgot to get Megaran to freestyle.
Damn.
He could have freestyled the whole podcast, I bet.
That would have been perfect behind the curtain content, but we have even better stuff behind the curtain. I'm not even going to say.
Okay, well, you know that Megaran didn't freestyle back there, but we did have him on behind the curtain.
Mm-hmm.
For only $5, join our Patreon. You'll be supporting this podcast that you love and that we love making, and you will get bonus content from Megaran and so many more.
Also, just to be clear, you will be a ska defender, and I hate to break it to you, if you're not a Patreon subscriber, you're not technically a ska defender.
This is true.
So I just put that in your ear. Just let that thought roll around in your brain for a few days.
Mm-hmm.
and then pull out your wallet. Put that $5 in your computer.
Get out the credit card. Write the silly numbers on the front and the expiration date and the 3 silly numbers on the back. Add your zip code and then support this podcast and defend Ska. All right. We'll talk to you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Under 30, choosing health insurance for the first time, there's a lot to figure out. HMOs, PPOs, HSAs, copays. And if you actually need care, how do you even know it's covered? Well, don't worry, because Kaiser Permanente's got you covered. With straightforward answers about health plan options, information on choosing a doctor, understanding deductibles, and more. It can be a lot, but Kaiser Permanente has answers. Check out kp.org/BetterHealthMAS to get it all figured out. That's kp.org/BetterHealthMAS.